it's not only that the companies who hire from the work release system get to benefit from paid lower wages, it's also the workers are in an incredibly precarious position and could really benefit from solidarity from free world workers and all of us on the outside.
Will Tucker is the director for Jobs to Move America's Southern program. The Jobs to Move America is conducting now, in coalition with other groups, a campaign called Recall Injustice at Hyundai-Kia. And Will is here to talk about that with us. Will, welcome to the Valley Labor Report.
Hey, Jacob. Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Really great to have you and really excited about this campaign. Can you talk to us a little bit about the genesis of this campaign? How did it get started?
Sure. Yeah. Well, started several years ago, when we heard in Alabama through press reports, namely Reuters, an investigation by the news outlet Reuters. We heard several years ago that children, including those as young as 13 years old in some cases, were found illegally employed at several Hyundai-Kia suppliers in our state. Now, this was happening around the Black Belt region, in and around the Montgomery area. And it culminated in today, actually, the Hyundai Kia's first U.S. assembly plant based in Montgomery, Alabama, the HMMA, Hyundai Motor Manufacturing plant, is actively being sued by the U.S. Department of Labor for profiting off of child labor in those cases in the past. Now, when this kind of thing happens in a state where you and your coalition are dedicated to workers' rights and are working to improve conditions for all workers, you really can't sit still. This demanded action, and we set out to address it.
That's incredible. You said just today the U.S. Department of Labor announced that they're filing a lawsuit against HMMA for profiting off of child labor. And that's important. The thing that I caught there is that they're actually going after Hyundai, not just the suppliers. Did I hear that correctly?
Well, actually, this is a case that's been going on for a little over a year. But the important thing to remember is that this case is proceeding through the federal courts. So federal judges have not kind of brushed this off. It's a really serious issue, and they're taking it as such. But the lawsuit was filed back in 2024.
Okay, gotcha. That's what I was thinking, but I didn't know if there was something new that came out. Along with this campaign, Jobs to Move America, along with the Columbia Labor Lab, released a report about prison labor in Hyundai-Kia's supply chain, particularly in the Montgomery area. Can you talk to us about what some of the key findings were of that report?
Well, sure. And we got to this point because when we heard about the cases of child labor several years ago, we set out to find, what are the other kinds of workers in precarious positions that are being profited off of in this supply chain. And pretty quickly, we found that incarcerated workers through Alabama's work release system were employed in Hyundai-Kia suppliers. Now, this was going on similar to the issues of child labor in the Montgomery area and down around that area in the Alabama Black Belt. And we set out to study the impact of the incarcerated labor in the supply chain, not only on the incarcerated workers themselves, but also on the wages and working conditions for all free world workers in those supply chain locations as well. And so Jobs to Move America set out to survey auto workers, auto supplier workers in the region, and we wound up surveying 650 auto supply chain workers last year. and handed that data over for analysis to Columbia Labor Lab. And the top line report, or the top line finding in the report, is actually that a 10% increase in the share of incarcerated workers at a plant was associated in the study with a 10 to 14% drop in wages for all workers in that plant. And we also found that overall, workers in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain reported earning 10 to 15% less than other auto supply chain workers in Alabama. Workers also reported in this survey experiencing more health and safety hazards and negative experiences like wage theft, forced overtime, and harassment. And of course, we centered at the very outset the incarcerated workers who were involved in this system as well. And so our organizers at Jobs to Move America visited the prison facilities where they lived, visited the work sites where they worked, and got to know a few of these workers quite well, and have actually since helped to advocate for their release on parole. And we're happy to say that several of those workers who participated in our survey and organized with us have been released on parole in the past year.
That's really, really incredible. And that is, talk to us a little bit about the mechanism by which that happens. I think it's pretty intuitive, but it's worth spelling it out for folks. How is it, even if, even if Hyundai is utilizing prison labor, why does that bring down wages for free world workers?
Sure. Well, I think it's really important to point out at the outset that this is not the incarcerated workers' fault. They are part of a system that private companies benefit off of in Alabama. So Alabama has a work release system, which is a bit of a misnomer. This is not a system that is designed to prepare workers or incarcerated people for release, such as a transitional center that you might see in another state. These are work camps. In many cases, they're co-sited. They're on the same sites as the camps where workers generations ago built the state's highway system. Incarcerated workers generations ago built the state's highway systems. And so these are work camps. I've met folks who are serving life sentences in these work camps and are employed by private companies. And the way it works is that the state has determined that these folks, these workers, are not a threat to anyone, themselves or anyone, and that they can go, as a result of that determination, out into the community. And it's absolutely absurd that the state says that these workers can go out and work in a dangerous factory setting with really fast line speeds and with very, very little training in some cases, for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. It's okay to release them into the free world to do that, but then they must go back to the prison just to sleep at night. It's a really absurd system that we've created here. But you asked about the mechanism, and that's that. To get a little bit into the weeds, the state requires that incarcerated workers make the same wages as the folks that they're working right alongside. So these incarcerated workers are, as I said, they're directly employed by the companies, and they work right alongside, side by side, with free world workers. And since the state requires that they make the same, the low wages that are afforded to the incarcerated workers kind of percolate out through the rest of the plants. And that's how we get to this finding in a roundabout way. I'd encourage everybody to go read the report, but that's how we get to this finding that a 10% increase in the share of incarcerated workers at a plant is associated with a 10 to 15% drop in wages for all workers at that plant.
And another reason, so it sounds like, because they have to pay the same, there's an incentive for the company to try to do everything that they can to bring the free workers' wages down a little bit so that they can get a sort of a benefit from the incarcerated workers. And a reason that the incarcerated workers would be willing to accept such lower wages which are even lower than, ultimately than what their free counterparts get, because a bunch of that is garnished by the Alabama Department of Corrections. But the reason that they're willing to accept lower compensation than maybe they would if they were in the free world is because the conditions in Alabama's prisons are so horrific. I know that the report doesn't go much into that, but there's been another documentary that was released about Alabama's prisons, The Alabama Solution, on HBO. I would recommend folks going and watching that. There's also a new book about Alabama's prisons, based largely on interviews with prisoners in the state of Alabama. But could you talk a little bit about what, even just some of the recent media has found about what it is like to be in a prison in the state of Alabama?
Yeah, well, that's absolutely right. I mean, put this into context, right? You go and you talk to some of these incarcerated workers who are living in a forced prison labor system, and in the work release facilities. And, why are they there? Why do they view that as like the safest of their available options? Well, it's because at Alabama's close and medium security facilities, both the federal Department of Justice and other investigating agencies, federal judges through the years, multiple times for generations have determined that Alabama's prisons are incredibly dangerous. And this bears out in the data. If you look at the number of murders, suicides, overdoses, serious mental health issues in our close and medium security facilities, they're incredibly, incredibly dangerous spaces. And this is rooted in the overcrowding of our prison system, which is itself rooted in decades of carceral policies passed by the legislature, and just a massive over-criminalization of largely communities of color in Alabama, but all poor communities and working class communities in Alabama in general have been affected by this. And so you have a massive overcrowding problem. You pair that with an understaffing issue at these prisons, and those two kind of interrelated ills of overcrowding and understaffing have created incredibly dangerous conditions in the close and medium security facilities. And one of the only available release valves for a very small number of workers, incarcerated people overall, is the work release system. And there are, at any given time between 1,000 and 1,200 workers in the work release system in Alabama. And these facilities are overcrowded as well, but the data bears out as well that there are fewer serious assaults, fewer sexual assaults, fewer murders, fewer really dangerous conditions in these work release facilities. And so, if you are a incarcerated person in Alabama and you are serving let's say that you're serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole, perhaps under Alabama's Habitual Felony Offender Act, which is a 3 strikes law that can take you away for life if one of your felony offenses is as simple as a simple marijuana possession charge. That's what we're dealing with in Alabama. Let's say that you're in that position and you need to protect yourself, and the available option to you is to enter a forced prison labor system. That's something that you might consider. And so that's how folks get into this system, and that's how folks are willing to accept not only the lower wages, but also the coercion that comes from being in this system. Imagine if you're in that position and you get hurt at work. What is your recourse? If you speak up if you become a problem at work, you're not only at risk of being fired, you're at risk of being fired and then sent back deeper into Alabama's prison system, back to these close and medium security facilities. So it's not only that the companies who hire from the work release system get to benefit from lower wages paid to those workers. It's also that the workers are in an incredibly precarious position, and could really, really benefit from, to cut to the chase, solidarity from free world workers and all of us on the outside.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Absolutely. I think if I'm not remembering incorrectly, your report talks about a prisoner who got an injury and was, basically kind of shoot along and told to continue working. And maybe I'm remembering that from something else potentially. But
that's absolutely right. Yeah. That's Mark Miller. Mark has been released on parole and has been an incredibly effective storyteller about his issue. And he was employed at a Hyundai-Kia supplier in Montgomery and got seriously injured. And that injury was just not taken seriously in the moment. It wasn't taken seriously back at the back at the work camp where he lived. And Mark has serious chronic issues with that injury. Broke several of his ribs and still has a lot of pain related to that to this day. So, yeah.
And the stat that you mentioned that there's overcrowding, there's understaffing, there's also, corrupt staffing. One of the largest causes of death in Alabama's prison systems are overdoses. And how are the drugs getting into the prisons? It's the prison guards are bringing drugs into the prisons. Almost certainly. That's what basically everybody believes. So overcrowding, understaffing, corrupt staffing, and the stat that has stuck with me since I've read it is that there's a prisoner dying in Alabama's prisons almost every day. It's like 300 people a year, and in the 80s, there was a boiling point with Alabama's prisons where there was a lot of people kind of running around with their hair on fire saying that something needs to be done, Republicans and Democrats, people in the federal government and people in the state government. And the thing that got them to that tipping point was there were 20 to 30 people dying per year in Alabama's prisons. And so things are literally tenfold worse than they were 50 years ago. And now it seems like nobody wants to do anything. I mean, the attorney general was interviewed for the Alabama solution, and he was like, "No, I mean everything's fine, basically." Really, really gross stuff. We want to. We'll continue talking about the prison situation later on, but I want to focus a little bit. I want to focus a little bit more on the campaign itself and some other of the key findings. In addition to the exploitation of prison labor and kind of pitting prison workers against free world workers and decreasing wages in that way, your report also found prevalence of death and injury over the last 10 years. At least 12 workers have died working for companies in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain. OSHA inspections documented 854 safety violations, more than 1,000 reported injuries and illnesses. Evidence of child labor, we've talked about that. Federal and state investigators, along with journalists, uncovered children as young as 13 illegally employed in at least 9 Hyundai-Kia suppliers in Alabama. Environmental violations, I had not been tracking this. Hyundai-Kia's U.S. assembly plants have incurred financial penalties exceeding those paid by all other automotive manufacturing plants in Alabama and Georgia for environmental violations, paying over $158 million in environmental penalties. And so, that's a lot of stuff that the Recall and Justice campaign has pointed to as problematic. And so, what is the goal here? What are the organizations that Jobs to Move America is in coalition with? What are y'all pushing for from Hyundai-Kia as a response to these myriad of issues in their supply chain across the South?
Right. Well, look, the top line numbers from the report and I would encourage everybody to go to recallinjustice.org and read these reports. Not only the Columbia Labor Lab report about prison labor in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain and the effects there, but also the report Hidden in Plain Sight, which is the report you're referencing that covers all these issues. And these top line numbers are absolutely staggering, in my opinion, of course. But look, what it shows is that the government agencies that oversee these things, the enforcement actions, the fines, it's all been insufficient. It's all been woefully insufficient to ensure that Hyundai-Kia is conducting its business in a responsible and safe way while offering like high quality jobs and living wages to our communities. And so, that's just not what we see here, and we have to have better. And so the Recall and Justice coalition that we're building is coalescing around this demand. We have a plan to persuade Hyundai-Kia to come to the negotiating table with our coalition of community and labor partners from Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, California, and negotiate a better way forward to prevent these negative impacts on our communities from continuing to happen. I mean, we sent a letter from Recall and Justice. It was signed by about 40 organizations. Now that had Central Labor Councils signed on. It had state federation presidents signed on. It had other national and regional labor partners signed on. It also had grassroots organizations from places like Savannah and Montgomery, Alabama, and the surrounding area in Black Belt, Alabama, out of Birmingham, and in Louisiana as well. And all of these groups are coming together to say with one voice that we have to see better behavior. We have to see better outcomes in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain, especially as this company is growing in our region, as Hyundai-Kia are expanding their operations, not just with the Meta plant over outside of Savannah, Georgia, which was in the news earlier this year, of course, with the largest federal immigration enforcement at a work site in recent memory. They're also expanding in Louisiana. So down in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, Hyundai-Kia wants to put in a steel mill to supply steel to the auto supply chain throughout Alabama and Georgia. And look, all of these groups, labor partners, unions, and local unions to CLCs, to state feds, to regional directors from several major manufacturing unions, our brothers and sisters over at Steelworkers and UAW, and many others. Are coming together to say in one voice that the enforcement actions aren't enough. The outcomes are terrible right now, and we need to see better for our communities.
And so y'all are, again, pressuring Hyundai-Kia to come negotiate a community benefits agreement. We're referring to the company as Hyundai-Kia because, most people know Hyundai and Kia as separate companies, but they're owned ultimately by the same entity. And at this point, are there concrete demands that you would like to see in a community benefits agreement, or that certain of your coalition partners would like to see in a community benefits agreement? Or is the first step really getting to the bargaining table and establishing a maybe more productive relationship between the company and the communities that are generating all of its profits?
Yeah, well, let's do just a quick recap of everything we talked about here, right? So we have the documented incidents of child labor in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain in Alabama. We have the low-wage employment by Hyundai-Kia suppliers of incarcerated people in Alabama's prison labor system. We have the serious safety problems that you just laid out for us, including the 12 deaths in 10 years in this supply chain and other serious injuries across the supply chain. We've also got the degradation of water resources tied to the production at these facilities and the environmental issues that you mentioned as well. And look, still, If you take Hyundai-Kia at its word, these practices are inconsistent with their commitments to human rights at the international level. And I'll just read that. That's Hyundai-Kia's stated intention is to strive to prevent and mitigate the negative effects of business activities on human rights. And, yet these specific problems that we're laying out, that we are documenting here and presenting to them, are harming both the workforce and the communities where they operate. And so what to do about this now? We have to find a better way forward, and we have to work together to coalesce around, coalesce around a table to negotiate a solution here. And that's our proposed solution. That's what we're persuading the company to do. We want to see Hyundai-Kia make ambitious, enforceable commitments to their workers and to their neighbors through a community benefits agreement, which again, I'll just say, I'll go back and explain. This is a private contract between community groups and an employer. It's designed to achieve labor standards, job standards, and equity measures, and it can be enforced through binding arbitration. And really importantly, our coalition in Alabama has successfully negotiated one of these agreements. We have an active community benefits agreement up in Anniston, Alabama, with New Flyer of America, which is a manufacturer of electric transit buses. There's a brand new union at the plant in Anniston with IUE-CWA, and many other really positive outcomes that are directly related to the community benefits agreement, including, new job standards and equity measures. And so we've done this before. And we have a model that works, and we are right now coalescing together, again, this group of 40 organizations as Recall Injustice, to invite the company, Hyundai-Kia, to come to the table to negotiate a community benefits agreement with us to address these really, really serious issues that really ultimately, Jacob, they represent the sins of the past in the South. They bring to mind the sins of the past. We've highlighted the fact that generations ago, when we had cotton planters and when we had mining companies dominating our region in the South, they used captive labor. They retaliated against workers who wished to organize. They turned a blind eye to serious injuries and deaths in the workplace accidents that occurred back then. They degraded water resources. They displaced Black residents in communities of color. They just overall perpetuated the system of just staggering social injustice. And ultimately, we don't want to go back there. And we don't believe that Hyundai-Kia wishes to recreate the sins of the past. We're going to hold them to their word, their stated intention, to strive for better human rights outcomes and meet them on that level, propose a win-win solution where we can come together as a strong company and as a strong coalition of community and labor groups to create a community benefits agreement that addresses these issues for the benefit of everybody.
The elephant in the room in conversations about this is, how do you get this huge international multi-billion-dollar corporation to agree to these things? Particularly in the United States, we see corporations and across the world be willing to spend more money fighting a union than they would have to spend bargaining or agreeing to a fair union contract. And I know that this isn't a union campaign per se, but you're asking ultimately the company would be spending more money, and they would be ceding some of their power over their decision making to the communities that they're in. And so there's a similar dynamic here. And we just talked earlier in the program about how Jacksonville State University in Alabama was willing to spend 3 times the amount of money on an educator award so that the union's name would not be attached to it. The Communication Workers of America were willing to donate some number of thousands of dollars to pay for, an incentive award for educators at Jacksonville State University, and they went out and they were able to pull up 3 times that amount of money so that they didn't have to have the union's name on the award, right? And you see stuff like that happen all of the time. And so how is the Recall and Justice campaign going to be able to get this huge corporation to assent to the community's demands?
Well, sure. That's a great question, of course. And when I'm traveling to places like Savannah, where Hyundai has built the Meta plant and the kind of surrounding area, one of the largest, if not the largest, I believe, actually, economic development projects in Georgia history. When you talk to people from Ascension Parish in Louisiana, when you talk to folks in Montgomery, Alabama, where Hyundai Motor Manufacturing has been located for almost 20 years now, the first thing to remind people is that workers and communities do have power. And if we don't join together as one voice and unify around a single, demand, request, effort to persuade the company to come to the table to negotiate with us, there's whether the company intends to do it or not, and of course we know how the history of industry in the South, as I said, there's an element of divide and conquer that can take place, and we just can't allow that to happen. And so the first step here is not allowing that to happen, coming together as one voice and signing on to a letter as we did, and then taking our effort directly to key decision makers, which is what we did just under 2 weeks ago, or rather over 2 weeks ago, in the LA Auto Show in Los Angeles. And so, 40 organizations signed the Recall and Justice at Hyundai-Kia letter. We took that letter to directly to executives. We met them during the media day ahead of the LA Auto Show earlier, or rather last month, and just put this letter directly in the hand of the highest executive that we met was Kia's North American CEO. We also demonstrated in front of the LA Auto Show, bringing attention to these issues, namely the tragic 12 deaths over 10 years in the Hyundai-Kia supply chain. Out in front of the LA Auto Show with about, more than 5 dozen partners and community members in Los Angeles, from Korean American organizations in Los Angeles to our community coalition partners from Alabama who flew out, from partners in Savannah. And this kind of working together, this coalescing, this coming together as a coalition, to in a unified way persuade the company to take these issues seriously, is the starting point. Now, we have to remember that workers have power, that communities have power. They have different kinds of power. They have symbolic power, but they also have institutional power, and they have associational power, and the bonds of solidarity that we build across all of these organizations. And we have structural power. We have to remember that workers hold structural power as well. And with that in mind, we've got to put one foot in front of the other, and we have to coalesce together and build solidarity between labor and community partners, and between workers and their neighbors in places like Alabama, Georgia, and Louisiana, and California. And move this forward. Now, I think one of the things that we're going to be looking at in early 2026 is how do we take this effort international? We have, natural allies that we want to meet and grow in solidarity with from all corners of the world. When you're dealing with a multinational of this size and scale, you're going to be able to find solidarity with folks who are dealing with similar issues in all corners of the world. And so we are going to take this international. We're going to go to those places, meet those workers and neighbors and communities and unions, and continue to build out this solidarity among the coalition that we're building.
Yeah, folks may be surprised to learn that in South Korea, where Hyundai and Kia come from, the workers there are unionized with the Korean Metal Workers Union, and the UAW and the Korean Metal Workers Union have recently been, increasing their talks, and they signed an agreement only a few months ago to increase cooperation. So looking forward to seeing more on that, and I'm sure that there will be conversations happening with your folks around those things as well. Will Tucker is the director for Jobs to Move America's Southern program, talking to us about the Recall Injustice at Hyundai-Kia campaign. Will, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jacob. Longtime listener, supporter of the program. Appreciate what you do. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.